Good evening. Good evening. Thank you to everyone that's joining us tonight. And we're so excited to be with you here. I'm Jamila Brown, co host and co founder of the 5 Minute Career Hack. And I am here with the illustrious Mickey Graham, my partner in crime for this live session tonight. And tonight, we're going to be talking to you about a topic that has gained significant traction in the workplace and in life in general. And I believe it doesn't get the attention at this point that it clearly deserves. I believe more people are challenged with this than not. So, more than half. I know I personally suffered from burnout, the topic we're going to be talking about tonight, in the 2016, kind of 2015 time period. And this wasn't being talked about. So, I didn't even have a name for it. I didn't know that's what it was. And in hindsight, after some years of being away from corporate America, I realized that's exactly what I was experiencing. So let's get right into the conversation. And I want to start by asking you a question, Mickey. Right. Number one, because I like to let the audience get to know us a little bit better. But number one, have you ever experienced burnout? Yes or no? You don't even have to get into the specifics of the details of it, but just curious, have you ever experienced it yourself?
Yeah, and I personally have gone through multiple periods of burnout, and not until recently, actually, that I was like, oh, now I'm starting to become aware of when it's starting to come up or when I
Oh,
might be putting in too much work and those kind of things. So definitely becoming more aware of it now. But I think there's peaks and valleys of burnout for certain people, and I kind of fall into that category.
yeah, and I think it absolutely is an ebb and flow, and it can happen. It can be sparked by different things too. I believe it doesn't necessarily just have to be in the workplace that it
Mm.
starts. My philosophy is really that part of why burnout starts in the first place is because somehow we think our personal and professional lives are separate, and unless you can divide your body physically in half and still function in both, they come together. And so there's this fallacy, this narrative that we've created that doesn't exist. And so then, because we've set ourselves up almost to fail to a certain degree, when something's happening personally, it impacts professionally. And then before you know it, we start snowballing. Or if something happens professionally, then we start snowballing personally as well. And I know that was my experience. It started personally and then snowballed. Everything started to happen professionally as well. And I probably should have just taken a leave of absence, because you can't, if it's personal. And that's one thing I want to encourage everybody. I'm already derailing the conversation and the questions, but if it's happening personally, just take the leave of absence. Just take the leave of absence, because the personal thing is not going to go away by ignoring it. That, whether that's you, your spouse, kids, parents, whatever that situation is, it's the most important thing. Don't ever forget that that's the most important thing. So, getting into the conversation a little bit about, burnout, we want to really, desensitize and take the stigmas or whatever that might be off of it. I want to ask you, what do you think helped you become aware in those kind of ebbs and flows, and how it happens for you, and how you started to know, like, here's kind of some of those signs that I'm starting to be aware of before it happens? What were some of those things for you, Mickey?
Well, I think I want to back up a little bit to something that you just said because that kind of leads into this. And, it's like if something personal in your life is going on, just take some time off from work. And I don't think I was raised or taught that. So I was never
Mm,
given permission for me to even know that, like, hey, if there's something going on in my personal life, I'm allowed space in my professional life to say, hey, there's something going on at home or whatever that case may be. And I was never taught that I had that
mm,
permission, and it was ashamed of, there was a lot of shame around if you took time off or if there was something in your personal life, it was like a sign of weakness. And,
right.
being a woman in corporations, it was there was a lot more of that for me personally. Now, I did have a lot of success. I'm very grateful for my other counterparts, so I don't want to completely knock that, but that was just my personal experience. And I think for me was just being like, okay, I'm starting to feel extra on edge. I'm snapping at my kids more. I
Mm,
just didn't feel right. Like something was off about me and my character. And feeling tired and feeling frustrated a little bit easier were some of the things. And I had some people in my life actually give me feedback saying, hey, you seem like you're like a little tired or you're a little exhausted. So
Mm,
luckily I did have some people in my life that were bringing some of these things to awareness, but I just didn't feel right. And I think in those moments when you don't feel right, you have permission to just stop and pause for a second and be like, something's off, something's not right, and know that you're safe to communicate this to other people, even if they're going to judge you or shame you or whatever. But I think communication can solve all problems. So being able to identify the awareness of becoming hyper aware of how your body reacts when you're overworking or when you're tired or when you're stressed, and just learning. And there's so many modalities we could get into to manage stress, but I think with burnout, it's like, okay, I've done a lot and it's going to come up. Like, we're programmed to work hard. Our parents grew up in this industrial age of,
oh,
you
good.
know, they have these pillars, and you go do this one thing, you go do this, and it yields this experience. Well, we're not in that age anymore. We're an information age. So I think with so much technology and competition and things that are going on, because we have so much information, we're accessing so much, we're constantly overstimulated, that just realizing that times are different. We don't work like we used to. We don't need to work like we used to, especially with technology. That doesn't give us permission to work harder,
Right.
So it's just awareness. It really starts with awareness and being okay saying, I need a minute, or that something's off about myself.
That's so good, Mickey. And just for our audience, we've got LinkedIn, our LinkedIn audience tapped in here, as well as our YouTube community. So thanks for joining us. And I want to shout them out. And I want to also say at the same time, we've got Shannon. She says she's in the front row, waiting to hear. Man, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Candace, my sister, partner in crime at the 5 Minute Career Hack, serving as admin for us tonight. So appreciate her being here. And she said awareness is key, right? She said awareness is key. And then there was another one she put in the comments as well. So if you guys are in the comments, man, keep sharing in the comments, keep tapping in with us, because you're in community right now. Community support and having someone who loves you tell you what they see is key. So you got to be willing to be open to that. That's what Mickey was just
Mhm.
talking about. And then receiving that. So you got to sign up for some accountability and then be willing to receive it for your own health. And then Candace also put burnout is going to come up, it's inevitable. And I want everyone to know Mickey and I have never done any type of interview recording for the podcast or anything like that, nor have we shared our personal stories around burnout. But when I asked you the question, what you felt like was the thing that helps you to know something's happening or maybe you're feeling something different, you said something didn't feel right. And that's
Mhm.
exactly what it was for me. Exactly what it was. I was going for another job interview. I was going to move from one role to another role with a different company, and everything was working out. I asked for the sky and they were going to give it to me. I flew out, came home from that interview about 12 noon, like middle of the week. No reason to be fatigued. It was just like an hour conversation, short flight. I was back home, right? Went to sleep about 1 o'clock. I said, I'll just take a nap. I don't have anything else to do. I didn't wake up till the next day at 12.
Mhm.
And that there was just no reason for it. I didn't feel right. Something was off. And I called the person immediately and I let them know, man, I appreciate everything you're doing. I think this is an incredible opportunity. I'm excited about it, but it's time for me to bet on myself because I was burned out. Now, I couldn't explain that then, but looking back on it, it was so overwhelming that I just had to stop because it didn't feel right. So I think it's so interesting that that's your thing too, right? And it may not be the same thing for everybody else, but it's so interesting that we share that same kind of indicators. Like, if you're really in tune with yourself, you know when you're off and you should listen to yourself, whether that's even medically, right? Not just some mental things or emotional things. You should listen to yourself. So I think that's one of the signs. And you mentioned a couple others in there, right? And we've got the career transformation lab coming up October 15th and 17th. So excited. That's why we're here with Mickey tonight. She's one of our guest speakers. So if you're not already signed up to come to Burn the Rule Book, right? i.e., burnout, burn the rule book, pun intended, you need to sign up for this conference because not only will we help you identify the signs of burnout, we'll help you to navigate the cycle, but also come up with an action plan. because so many people wake up from, okay, I know I have burnout or I'm burned out, but I don't even know what to do. I don't even know what's next. And you're going to need an action plan. And that's what we're going to be doing at the Career Transformation Lab, Burn the Rule Book. So we're going to make sure we leave the link in the description for you to come check out Mickey, share more there. But the next question I wanted to ask you, Mickey, was really around like what was next for you after maybe your most recent, or what would you even think about first, right? Now that maybe you're not in that mode. Like, so what would be some of the things if you had to write like a one, two, three, and you know what? For time's sake, let's just say the one. What would be the
Yeah.
first thing, right? Because we could really dive deep on this, and we
We
talked
go. Oh
about it
yeah.
beforehand, and we're like, we're just gonna try to make it 30 minutes, but I already knew like it's probably gonna go long. But we appreciate y'all's happening. So, what would be the one thing that you're not in this season right now?
Wow, I think they're so different from that first time that I really experienced being like, whoa, this is a lot and I'm tired. Now I feel super safe with the people in my circle to say, hey, and they know, my people are here. They know that if I don't respond back to you, I don't even need to say it now. Where in the beginning, I was like, so if it's like on a Sunday and I don't respond back to you, just know I'm taking a day. But I think my old self used to shut down, hide, run, mess up relationships. Like I
Oof.
would just ghost people because I was like, I don't want to tell them I'm tired. Like that just sounds lame. Whereas now I literally over communicate with people and I'm like, hey, I got to be honest with you, and it's hard for me to do this. It still is something I'm working on, is saying like I'm literally not going to be able to give you time right now in this season.
Mm.
And I recently just had to do this of like I really want to be involved in all these things, but there's a major shift going on in my business and I have to focus, on there, or I will overextend myself, i.e. burnout, and I'll shut down, and I just know the pattern. And so now I just over communicate, and the people that are okay with it, those are my people. The people that are
Mm.
not okay with it or have a problem, those are not my people, and those opportunities were not for me. And I'm okay with it. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. You just keep it growing because you just, I can get kind of in the spiritual realm, but God's always got you. You
Yes.
know what I'm saying? So
Always, always got you.
it's just you always are going to come out. You can look back at any situation and know you're going to be fine. So knowing there's certain things that are for you, certain things are not for you, and just over communicating. And it's a tough thing to do sometimes, to say I need some time, or I'm actually not going to be able to
Mm-hmm.
commit to this, or I over committed and I extended myself. And if people get mad, that's okay. I understand. I'd get upset about things too, but just really, really communicate, and know that everything's okay. It's okay to pause. Just take a break. Don't overdo it. You don't need to. There's no need.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. So I think we're talking to some people that may have experienced burnout, and I think we're talking to some people that may be on the other side of it, and then we're also talking about people that are friends or in the community with people that are experiencing it. And so I think all three groups have some responsibility in that, and understanding and giving people grace, because you don't want to not be that person, right?
Mm.
You don't want to not be that person that now I don't really check for, as I like to say, I'm from New Orleans, that I don't really check with, I don't really fool with anymore, because you can't understand what I'm going through. So really, are we really friends? Are we really in community together? Are we really in relationship? If you can't understand and empathize, and then also then support in whatever way that looks like that I need, because that support's going to look different maybe in this burnout season than the next burnout season. Like I might need you
There's
to play a
always
more
one.
active role, right? There's not just one. So I might need you
Yeah.
to play a more active role or a less active role. I don't know. But I think we get caught up in the fact that our brains were wired to predict outcomes, and ultimately really struggle with change,
Mm.
right? Because of that predict outcomes to keep us safe, right? It's basically our brains are there to just literally make sure we breathe, blink, and don't kill ourselves, right? So, with that being said, it becomes a challenge when you're faced with someone you love, care about, you've
Mm.
been in community with, and they're moving differently for whatever reason. It becomes a challenge, and now you have to, put on your big girl pants and adjust, and that's okay too. That to me is is at the foundation of any healthy relationship. And I'll actually even transition gears here and bring this in as well as we prepare for the Career Transformation Lab Burn the Rule Book, October 15th and 17th, starting at 6:30 p.m. We're going to drop the link in the comments of this live so that you can tap in. But one of the things that I think everyone can relate to, and you can also, I'll have you, Mickey, share something that'll help individuals that are on both sides of that equation, is the transition from for a parent when your
Mm.
child, is no longer like your 100%. I mean, they'll always be your responsibility. I get it. But they had, at a certain point, got to spread their wings and fly. And releasing that parental control is a tough change. It's a very difficult change. I went through it with my mom, my dad, and, it was tough. It was tough. And there's a ton of love there, but it was difficult. It was difficult. But I believe that that relationship, because it's the parental relationship for most people, you're forced to navigate it. You're forced
Mm.
to get it right. You're forced because the average person isn't trying to disown their parents, right? So I use that as an example, but I also know that there's an umbilical cord that was once attached. So there
Mm.
is, some I gotta figure this out, right? Some way or shape, hook or crook, right? But what are some other ways or other relationships that you might even use as an example for people to be able to help navigate this in their tribe, in their community? Because that's you're gonna need that more than anything, in my opinion, when it comes to burnout. You don't want to do this alone.
So I will say yourself first and foremost. Like seriously, spend time and be comfortable being super uncomfortable in your own skin. There's going to come times when you have to face yourself, and I think it really starts there, like spending time with yourself alone, like completely in solitary, no phone, no distractions, like choosing to spend time with yourself. It starts there. Because I think the more comfortable that you are with yourself, the more safety that you will find in others if you know who you are,
Mm,
right? Like it's just law. Like you attract likes, right? So if you're spending time with yourself, and then I think from there, obviously, it's the people around you. It's the friends that you've tested over years. It's the family members that drive you crazy, but they get you because they've seen all the things. But I think the most important thing it is yourself. Is really getting comfortable with yourself, because there may be times that, for me, I was seeking everything outside of myself. Everything. I was getting advice from everybody, from the
mm,
people. It's like you go to the people that have never made $1 million and you're trying to ask them how to make $1 million. Like, what are you doing? You can't go to those people. So I was seeking the wrong advice from the wrong people. So it really does start with
mm.
yourself. And then once you feel super secure in who you are and communicating and freedom of outcome, when you express this to the people around you, their actions will show you if they need to continue in your life or not.
That's good. That's a mic drop. I'm not
Oh.
gonna piggyback. I'm not gonna hit reply all. I'm not doing any of that on that. I want if you need to hear that again, rewind it because that's a mic drop. It starts with you. I'm not gonna say another word. But I am gonna invite the audience. If you have questions, thoughts, drop those in the comments. If you're listening on YouTube, LinkedIn, or wherever even if you're watching it on the replay, drop a comment, a question, or a thought. If you're having any challenges with it, or might even think you might be going through it or come out of it, how did you get out of it? We'd love to hear from you as well. I see another comment. I know that Candace is super passionate. She said self love absolutely comes first. There's no way to build healthy boundaries to help yourself if you don't know yourself, right? Which was what Mickey was talking about. So you have to love yourself first and take time for it. I'm a servant leader by nature, so I'm giving more than
Mm.
I'm ever probably taking or receiving. So I'm conscious of that though. Once I became conscious of it, it didn't feel like a burden anymore. But what God had blessed me with felt like a burden because I wasn't fully connected to the fact that this is who I was. Once I
Mm.
got fully connected to the fact that this is who I am, now I know when I'm giving and I know when I need to retreat and I know when I need to take time for me because I know that that's who I am. And that's who I was
Mm.
created to be. But it felt like a burden. Okay, it felt like a burden because I'm just like, Jay, this is how I talk to myself. Just y'all get a little insight. Like, Jay, what are you doing? Like, stop it. Take care of yourself. Like, why are you running all over the world and back and doing all of this stuff and taking care of all these people? Stop it. Could
Yeah.
not stop myself because there's this internal thing, and I believe everybody has their unique gifts to share with the world. And like you said, know your people earlier. There's a group of people that God has placed for me in this season of life, and I just have to manage that and be a good steward of it. So I think that's super important. So as we're starting to wrap up this live, you're going to get Mickey on. Let me make sure I say this right, because if I say it wrong, I'll be in trouble. You're going to get Mickey on the very first night of
Oof.
Burn the Rule Book, the Career Transformation Lab, the very first night. Because what we want to do with this Career Transformation Lab is we want to help you solve for some of those things that are in your purpose, who you are. If you're going through, we want to be able to solve for those things the first night. Now, when I say solve, I don't mean you're coming to get a cure, but you're coming to be
Yeah.
like, I want to make sure I can't do that in an hour and a half, right? That's not possible.
I need at least 12.
Right? But what we can do in that first night is help you start to become very self-aware, writing those things down, making helping you to get in touch with, that inner kid inside of you that once had a dream, once had a passion that got buried in some stuff, right? And
Mm.
that can also break the burnout cycle. So you're going to get Mickey on the first night around mindset, confidence, and some different things that she's going to bring to the table. And if you haven't already watched the podcast, or this live is a great preview, but you can go check out her podcast interview on our podcast a few weeks ago. It was phenomenal. I always get to edit everything, so I get to see. So you're going to have an incredible experience on the first night. She'll be one of our guest speakers that very first night. So yeah, fasten your seatbelts. I got let me see, I got another comment in here. I can't wait for the first night. I love that, love that. So with that being said, I want to ask for your final thoughts, Mickey. And maybe some of that's burnout and some of that's what they can expect to hear from you at the Career Transformation Lab, Burn the Rulebook.
Just one little thing, and I did say this on the podcast, but it really made an impact. Trust yourself and the process. We
Mm.
fight it. We're trying to swim up the river and just hop on the inner tube and take the river down. It's a lot easier. There may just be some bumps that you got to ride down, but you won't be as tired, I promise. So just go with the flow.
And that's so good because that's oftentimes, and then once we let go, right? And I know that it's such a cliche, let go and let God, right? And I get it.
It's
I'm a
real.
believer. It's real. It works, but it is so hard to relinquish that control. And I believe a lot of that is because of, the fear.
Mm-hmm.
And part of what we're going to talk about, we've got another amazing guest speaker on that first night, Helen Hannison. She's going to talk about how you get unstuck from that. But part of that comes from this social construct that we've grown up in. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody, I have to believe, because I believe in God, that they had great intentions for us. They wanted us to be great, they wanted us to be successful. So it's not that, it's just that this is what they knew to tell us. So, and we bought into it and we're continuing to buy into it, but then it's wrong, it's not for us, and it doesn't feel right, it doesn't fit. So, like, Mickey said, just hop in the raft and roll downstream. It's so smooth, and you're
But
gonna have
there's
fun.
something new on the market. There's something new on the market. Okay, it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be like a program. We can do things differently.
There's so many different ways, and you mentioned it at the beginning. The technology that's at our fingertips now is not what was at our fingertips 30 years ago. So there's so much opportunity. You just need help, honestly, navigating it. And that's what we want to be able to do for you at the Career Transformation Lab. So I appreciate you, Mickey, joining us tonight. And I know that anyone that invests in themselves will walk away from the conversation and what you're going to share with them during this workshop. They will be blessed beyond measure. So I appreciate you teaming up with us for this. I personally am going to have a front row seat, as Shannon mentioned in the comments. And I see Kay LaFleur Anders also in the comments as well. I know I'm going to have a front row seat to what you have to share because you blessed me tonight. As you can see, I always take notes. But you blessed me tonight as well. So I know the audience is going to be favored in hearing from you as well. So incredible time with you tonight. I can't wait to see you next Tuesday night, October 15th. Click the link in the description show notes of this live and get your ticket. Use code, I think Mickey, MICKI, and get a 25% discount. Get your ticket now. Registration closes soon. As I end every podcast, I love you all, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.